couple of weeks ago, I finished up the series, God's Blueprint for Marriage. But we had some technical difficulties, and we didn't live stream that service that Sunday, and we didn't get it recorded either. But I thought this series was important enough to go back and re-preach it, and to record it, and we can get that out to you guys. And if you missed that service that Sunday, you can go back and watch it, or if you want to go back and watch it, we wanted to get that to you. So here we are. If you remember, a little bit of review, God's blueprint for marriage is centered around this verse in Genesis chapter 2. It has 4 parts to it. We've looked at 3. The first part in God's blueprint is this foundational principle of priority. A man will leave his father and mother. Up to that point, family was the highest priority in his life. That was Hebrew culture. Family took the prize position in all relationships, all human relationships for sure. But you're to leave that. And as you leave your priority relationship, you establish a new priority relationship. That's your spouse. And so in God's blueprint for marriage, your wife, if you're a husband, should be the highest priority in your life outside of a relationship with Christ. Your husband, if you're a wife, should be the highest priority relationship in your life. And so we're going to just build some ground rules. And the first ground rule is this: your spouse is to be your priority. But that's not all. You leave your father and mother, and the King James says you're to cleave to your wife, to your spouse. So there's a priority, but there's also a pursuit. You leave, you pursue. And so we're to pursue our spouse. Not just when we're dating, just to get them or to catch them. No, we're to pursue them in our relationship for its entirety of the marriage. We're to love well. We're to respect well. We're to figure out what the love language is of our spouse and love them in their language. We're to do anything and everything we can to make sure we are continuing to pursue, to cleave to our spouse. You have priority, you have pursuit, and then the third part of this blueprint is oneness. The two shall become one flesh. I am yours. You are mine. We still have our distinctiveness. We still have our unique qualities, but we are not operating as two. We're operating as one. Solomon in Ecclesiastes says two's better than one. If one falls down, the one is there to the other one is there to pick him up. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. There's strength in oneness. There's God's design in oneness in marriage. Now, all 3 of those parts of God's blueprint is important to where we're going to go. If you need to dig into that, go back and rewatch any one of those messages if you want to or if you need to. But as we talk about priority, as we talk about pursuit, as we talk about oneness, we get here, and here's what it says in Genesis 2, verse 24. A man shall leave his father and mother and bond with his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Here's the sentence: both of the man and his wife were naked, and yet they felt no shame. Now, early on, I would read that sentence and I would think, they were naked. They were. But I would just think about the physical nakedness, and as I began to think on this and put this in the context of marriage, I realized there's more to that than just physical nakedness. And so I'm saying this last part of God's blueprint for marriage is that we are to build a naked marriage. What am I talking about? Well, when you're naked, you're exposed. Physically, yes, but in a naked marriage, you're vulnerable. In a naked marriage, you're not covering up. There's no secrets. And so it is a place where there's complete vulnerability. There's honesty here. I mean, if we're vulnerable with our spouse, we let our spouse in to our lives. Maybe to see our hurts, to see our wounds, to see our struggles, see our weaknesses. That takes honesty. That takes vulnerability. That doesn't happen if the marriage is not naked. So not only is there complete vulnerability, there's complete transparency. And transparency is, hey, there's no secrets. You can see in and everything about me. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to cover up. We're in this together. You're my priority. We are one. So why would I hide? There's no secrets. This is complete vulnerability, complete transparency. There's complete trustworthiness. It's a place where there's trust. I trust you. I trust you enough to be honest. I trust you enough to not hide anything from you. I trust you enough to share life with you. I trust you enough to let you see who I am. Trust. At this point, I'll tell you what enters in is fear. Because fear, more than anything else, will tell you you can't trust. You shouldn't trust. Don't say that. Don't let them see where you're wrestling with. Don't let them see your hurts. Fear will keep us from trusting, and trust will keep us from having a naked marriage. So yes, vulnerability, transparency, trustworthiness, but it all leads to this space. In this place, it is complete intimacy. That we are completely intimate. That's a great definition of oneness. That's the sweet spot. That's the sweet spot in God's design for marriage. That's the sweet spot for God's blueprint for marriage. That's the sweet spot that God hopes and wishes and designed for you to experience with your spouse, your wife, your husband. So the first thing this verse tells us, this sentence tells us, is that marriages should be naked. They were naked. But the second thing is that marriages, in a naked marriage, should be unashamed. That there should not be any shame in a marriage where there's oneness, where there's priority, where there's pursuit, when it's naked. But shame is just part of our living right now. It's part of reality. Brene Brown has done research in this, and she's a researcher in Houston, and she has many great books out. But the book that talks about vulnerability and shame is this book called Daring Greatly. It's a great book, I believe, for spouses to kind of read together, but it's not a marriage book. It's basically a life book. But in that book, she defines shame. And so this is her definition of shame. If there's something about me that if other people know it or see it, that I would not be able to connect or not be accepted or not be loved. And Brene Brown says anything in this category we can define as shame. If there's something about me, if there's something that's in me that I'm afraid, if you know that, or if you know that about me, if you see it in me, you wouldn't connect with me, you wouldn't accept me, you wouldn't love me. And so the response is we have shame, and so often that characterizes marriages. But in a naked marriage, there's vulnerability and transparency and trustworthiness and intimacy, and on the other side of that coin, there's no shame. But reality, and we know this, is naked marriages are hard to come by. And shame is common. And the reason it is, we can go back to the beginning. See, Adam and Eve, they started with a naked marriage. Leave father and mother, cleave to their spouse. The two should become one, and they were naked and not